Radio Rahim with the chairman of the board, Top Ranks Bob Arum, over on this side of the pond at Canary Wharf. Obviously, you're a well-traveled man, but last night I saw Vasil Lomachenko get a bigger applause, a thunderous applause, over the hometown boy, Luke Campbell. I was a bit surprised at how much fanfare there was for him here. Were you expecting that?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to understand, the best fight fans in the world are English fans. They really know this, and this is not just now. This has been over 50 years I've been in boxing. From the time I came over with Ali, I recognize that. These people here appreciate boxing and appreciate the skills that go into the sport.
Well, if you're building Lomachenko around the world as a global star, these kind of fights are exactly what's necessary. It seems, though, that on Saturday night, Luke Campbell might be a bit mismatched. Where do you see the strengths that Luke Campbell brings to the fight that could make this interesting?
Luke Campbell is an Olympic gold medalist, number one. Number two, he's fought top-level competition. He lost a split decision to Linares. He is a top quality lightweight. Lomachenko is by far the best lightweight out there. That doesn't mean that his fights, as long as he's fighting the top level, aren't going to be interesting. They may not end up to be competitive, but they'll be interesting. We're seeing in Lomachenko one of the most skilled, if not the most skilled, fighter of our time. And so we should enjoy the ride.
In a couple weeks, another Matchroom card will take place in New York with Devin Haney on it. There's been a lot of speaking about Devin Haney and Lomachenko getting together sometime next year. Do you see that in the cards?
No. Haney may end up to be a good fighter, but he is completely inexperienced at this time, and he has to earn his way up by beating some quality lightweights in order not to make a farce of it when he fights Lomachenko.
So then where do you find the challenges for Lomachenko? He said that going up to 140 doesn't seem to be in his immediate future. He says he's too small for that division. So at 35, where do you match him up to not make the fights just interesting but competitive?
Well, after this fight, his next fight, or the big fight, will be for the IBF title against the winner of Comey Lopez. That is as competitive a fight as we can make for Lomachenko. At that particular point, we'll look around and see if there are any other lightweights left to make good fights with him. And if there isn't, we'll go back down to 130 and fight guys like Burchell. Valdez is challenging Burchell, like the Fighting Marine Herring, like Floyd's kid Davis, maybe Farmer, although I don't think Farmer, would, but again, maybe Farmer, and if necessary, we'll go down to 126. A big fight for him, which would be a lot more competitive right now than a fight with Devin Haney, is Shakur Stevenson, who I think is probably, in those weight categories, the best talent around.
Of all those names you mentioned, probably Gervonta Davis would be the most fan favorite of the fight matchups if he were to go down to 130. Is that a strong possibility? Not just going down to 130, which is a hurdle unto itself, but making the fight with Davis seems very challenging on the promotion level.
No, if Floyd felt that Davis had a shot to beat Lomachenko, Floyd would make the fight. We have very good relationships with Floyd and with Leonard Ellaby. He probably doesn't feel that Davis would be competitive now with Lomachenko. And, Davis is a young fighter. You have to understand with Lomachenko, it's not only the professional fights that he's had, but it's that vast amateur experience that nobody else has. Nobody else has been in 397 amateur fights, won 2 gold medals. So, if Floyd feels that Davis is not ready to fight Lomachenko, I go along with Floyd. I mean, again, if Floyd really believed that right now that Davis could beat Loma, he'd do the fight in the 2 seconds.
Speaking of gold medalists and guys who you're very familiar with, there's Joshua fighting Ruiz, a guy you're very familiar with, in a rematch in Saudi Arabia, of all places. I'm sure, as everybody was, surprised at the outcome of the first fight. I'm curious what you were thinking while you were watching it, and what you think might happen in this rematch in Saudi Arabia.
Well, I think what's important is what I think will happen in the rematch. And what happened in the rematch is what happened in the first fight. Ruiz, whether by design or by luck, exposed Joshua's weakness, that he's a stand-up fighter, that he likes to fight for a distance, and if you come in and put pressure on him and you can take a punch, you can beat him. Joshua's completely the wrong style. I mean, Ruiz is completely the wrong style for Joshua.
It sounds to me like you're saying you're picking Ruiz in that rematch for sure.
Picking him big.
So if he wins, then he's almost the undisputed heavyweight champion. He's in a stable where he could challenge to be undisputed. Does he beat Wilder too?
He doesn't get to Wilder. We have a contract for Tyson Fury to fight Wilder, and Fury will beat Wilder the next time they fight, and will win the rematch. So, yeah, he can fight Tyson Fury, but that's a terrible fight for Ruiz.
Now, you say Tyson Fury beats Wilder in the rematch. A lot of people thought he beat him the first time. What does he have to do if the fight goes the same way? These fighters are essentially the same guys. How does he get the decision if he wins on the cards by your estimation?
But not getting knocked down.
Do you think that what we saw from Wilder with the Brazil fight, even as short as it was, people say, well, he threw a clean jab, a 1-2. It looks like he's starting to adhere to some skill and training of the technical side of boxing. Does he come into the second fight a better fighter?
I have no idea. I mean, Brazil was not a test. Brazil is Brazil, or just the way they say. Well, Schwarz wasn't a test, and maybe Wallen isn't a test, but they're the best available, so you fight them. Wilder's a very good fighter. There's no question about it, but I think my guy beats him.
Assuming your guy does beat him, are we looking at a rubber match for sure?
For sure.
A fight that we would love to see, and people are going to keep asking about until it gets made, is, of course, Spence Crawford. On both sides, you're blaming the other side. We're on different sides of the streets, the networks, and all of these things.
There is no blame. Other side of the streets, nothing. If they want to make the match, we'll make the match. You have to understand, Spence is now pay-per-view with Fox. Crawford is with ESPN. The one thing that ESPN and Fox know how to do is to work together. They do it in every other sport. They will do it in this sport. It's like the adults are now running the television. It's not like when we had the amateurs from the premium networks like HBO and Showtime, where they fought like pussycats. Trust me, with Fox representing one side and ESPN the other side, you will see cooperation like you can't believe.
With that said, do we see a possibly Crawford able to fight other guys in that stable? Like, all the titles are being held by PBC fighters, and Spence is not the only interesting fight. If we put Crawford in that mix and all these fighters could fight each other, that would be an amazing round.
Like whom? I mean, Spence, yeah, that's an interesting fight. The other guys are walkovers. Danny Garcia is a walkover. It's like a 10-1 fight with Crawford. Porter is going to get beat by Spence. Thurman got beat by Pacquiao. Pacquiao doesn't want to fight Crawford because he has no chance with Crawford. So the fight for Crawford is Spence. That is a fight that is very competitive, and there are views on either side as to who wins that fight. That is the fight that should be made. Everything else will take care of itself down the road.
Where do you see Pacquiao going down the road? I mean, him beating Thurman was an exciting performance to watch and surprised a lot of people. It would seem that Spence is next up for him. Is that a wise fight? Is that a fight that he can surprise a lot of people again?
No, and he won't take that fight and shouldn't take that fight because there's only one winner and he can get hurt. He's 41 years of age. Now, he looked great with Thurman, but he took punches like he's never taken before. A guy that age who wants to be president of a country doesn't want to end up punch drunk. He should be, if he can't get Mayweather, he should retire. If he gets Mayweather, great. Nobody gets hurt. But if he doesn't get Mayweather, my hope would be that he retires.
And lastly, Bob, we just saw Anthony Yarde get knocked out in the 11th round against Kovalev, but it was a hell of a lightweight fight. What do you see the prospects for Yarde, and how much more does Kovalev have left to reign at that light heavyweight division?
Yarde has no chance in the light heavyweight division unless he gets himself a real trainer. You don't go into those fights without sparring. That's crazy. You don't go into a fight against a Kovalev who has a great jab without throwing one jab. You just don't do that. You can't beat any of these guys. I mean, as close as he might have come with Kovalev, he would have no chance with Vocek or Beterbiev or Bivol. Let's see him with a new trainer, and then we can judge.
We see Kovalev getting ready for Canelo. Canelo and Kovalev seem like a fight that's essentially made. Who wins that fight? And stepping up to 75 for Canelo, is that a wise decision?
There's arguments both ways. Yeah, he'll be giving away height. He'll be giving away weight. But what is the biggest weakness of Kovalev?
Body shots.
Exactly. And what does Canelo do better than anybody else? Throw body shots. So who knows how that fight comes out.
Is Canelo now, and I mean, I know you Crawford and all this, but is Canelo the face of boxing right now with Joshua going down, Canelo being the biggest pay-per-view star? That's how Golden Boy frames it. Do you believe that?
I don't know what's the face of boxing. Certainly, Canelo isn't as skilled as Crawford or Lomachenko. That being said, there is no question that he is the biggest draw in boxing. If that makes him the face of boxing, then he's the face of boxing. You know, there's no dispute that the biggest draw in the sport now is Canelo Alvarez.
Does Triple G deserve that rubber match with Canelo? There's been so much discussion about what was promised to whom, and now obviously Kovalev seems to be the next fight instead of Triple G. Does Canelo owe Triple G one more?
If I was Canelo, I'd never fight Triple G. After what Triple G said about him, calling him a cheat, calling him horrible stuff, Mexicans don't take that crap. Why should Canelo give Golovkin ever the opportunity to get in the ring with him? Golovkin doesn't deserve it. Golovkin can stew in his own bitterness.
Radio Rahim with the chairman of the board, Bob Arum. One of the most interesting interviews always. I love to talk to you, and I appreciate you giving me the time always. Radio Rahim with the chairman, Bob Arum. Thank you, sir. Pleasure as always.